Hey everyone, welcome back. We're diving deep today into how women signal interest while simultaneously telling the competition to back off. Our source material is an article called Five Signs She's Claiming Her Interest in You and Warning Other Women to Back Off. We'll be exploring those nonverbal cues and social strategies. I'm joined by an expert to help us break down these subtle signs, ready to explore the fascinating world of unspoken communication.
Absolutely, these signs are everywhere once you start to notice them.
Let's jump right in. The article starts with something I think we've all experienced: proximity and touch. It says when a woman is interested, she might position herself closer to you without being too obvious about it. They use the word lingering. Have you noticed this subtle closeness before?
Definitely. It's all about personal space. When someone lingers nearby, they're testing the waters a bit, seeing how comfortable you are with them being close. It's a subtle way to gauge your interest and maybe open the door for more interaction.
So it's not just about physical closeness, it's about sending a message.
Right. And touch can amplify that message. The article talks about those light touches like a brush of the hand or a playful nudge. These little gestures can have a big impact on how we feel about someone.
Why is that? Is there something about touch that makes us feel more connected?
Touch releases oxytocin. It's often called the bonding hormone. It's the same hormone that helps mothers bond with their babies. It plays a key role in building trust and connection between adults. So even a fleeting touch can create a sense of closeness.
Wow, so it's not just the physical sensation, there's a chemical reaction happening too.
Exactly. And those chemical reactions can be pretty powerful, especially when it comes to attraction.
It really is. It's fascinating how much is going on beneath the surface. The article then moves on to shared experiences and conversations. It suggests that women might use these to build stronger connections, like recalling past moments or inside jokes. What's the psychology behind that?
Sharing experiences and memories is a great way to build intimacy and trust. When you reminisce with someone, you're creating a shared history. That sense of we've been through this together, like a little world that only the two of you share.
Like a two-person club.
Exactly. And those shared experiences become even more powerful when linked to positive emotions. Think about how you feel when you remember a fun outing with a friend or a special moment with someone you care about. Those positive feelings get associated with that person strengthening the bond between you.
That makes sense. And these days, shared experiences aren't limited to face-to-face interaction. The article points out how social media has become another way for women to signal interest.
Absolutely. Social media provides a platform for these signals to play out on a larger stage. It allows them to showcase their connection to a wider audience. It can be a powerful tool for reinforcing feelings of closeness and intimacy.
So things like liking posts, leaving flirty comments, or tagging each other in memes, it's not just random online activity, it's strategic communication.
Right. It can be. Think about it, every interaction, even something as simple as liking a post, is a tiny investment in the relationship. And those tiny investments can add up, especially when done consistently and thoughtfully.
Okay, now for a topic I think a lot of people are curious about: protective instincts. The article describes this as women subtly discouraging competition. For example, subtly positioning herself near her interest when other women are around.
It's a fascinating dynamic, right? It's like sending a nonverbal message that says, back off, this is my person.
I've totally seen that happen in real life.
Yeah.
That subtle shift in body language.
Yeah.
The way they sort of claim their space.
Exactly. And while we can't say for sure what's behind this behavior, it probably comes from a few different things. There might be a bit of territoriality at play, a desire to protect something valuable, but it also speaks to a woman's understanding of social dynamics and her ability to subtly communicate her intentions.
It's like she's playing chess with body language.
That's a great way to put it. And while these protective behaviors can sometimes seem possessive, it's important to remember they often come from a place of genuine affection and a desire to nurture the connection.
It's all about finding that balance, right? Between expressing your interest and respecting the other person's space.
Exactly. It's a delicate dance, and reading those subtle cues is key to navigating it gracefully.
Well, we've covered a lot already. From proximity and touch to social media strategies and protective instincts, it's amazing how many layers there are to these seemingly simple interactions.
It really highlights the complexity of human communication, doesn't it? We're not always consciously aware of the signals we send and receive, but they're constantly shaping our relationships and how we see each other.
Before we move on, is there anything that's particularly surprised you about these subtle signs?
I think what I find most fascinating is how these seemingly small gestures can have such a big impact. on how we feel and connect with others. It's a reminder that even in the digital age, those nonverbal cues are still so powerful.
That's a great point. It's like we're hardwired to pick up on these subtle signals even if we don't realize it. We'll be back in a moment to explore more of these fascinating insights, so stay tuned. Okay, we're back and ready to continue our deep dive. Last time we talked about proximity, touch, social media strategies, and even protective instincts.
We laid the groundwork for understanding those nonverbal cues that often slip under the radar, but say so much about a woman's intentions.
Exactly. Now, I want to dig into the article's point about shared rituals and integration into her social circle. Why are these elements so important when trying to understand a woman's level of interest?
Well, rituals, big or small, create consistency and predictability. Think about those couples you see who always go to the same coffee shop every Saturday, or have a standing Friday night dinner date.
It's like a rhythm that keeps them in sync.
Precisely. And it goes deeper than just habit. Rituals tap into our needs for security, belonging, and connection. When a woman starts including you in her rituals, it's a sign she's not just looking for something casual. She wants something more meaningful, something that makes you a part of her life.
It's like she's saying, I want you to be a part of my world, not just passing through.
Exactly. And that sense of integration is even stronger when she starts introducing you to her social circle. Meeting friends and family is a big step. It signals trust and commitment.
The article really stresses how that shows a deeper level of investment.
It does, because it's not just a casual hello, it's about letting you into her world and seeing if you fit in with the people who are important to her. It's about getting their feedback. It's a way of making you a part of her life on a deeper level.
It's like she's weaving you into the tapestry of her life, thread by thread.
I like that. And speaking of weaving things together, the article also talks about communication and action. It suggests that women who make the first move and keep the conversation going are showing strong interest.
It reminds me of the mere exposure effect. The idea that the more we see something, the more we like it.
You got it.
Yeah.
And it applies to relationships too. The more we interact with someone, the more comfortable we become with them. Regular communication creates a sense of closeness.
So it's not just about the big gestures or the random text. It's about those regular interactions that keep the relationship going.
Exactly. But the article also points out that actions often speak louder than words. Anyone can talk the talk, but it's the consistent actions that really show someone's feelings.
Like those examples in the article, going out of your way to help with something or remembering a small detail someone mentioned. Those little things show you're paying attention and genuinely care.
It's those acts of service, those small, thoughtful gestures that speak volumes. And it's not about one grand gesture, it's about being consistent. That's what builds trust over time.
So look beyond the surface and pay attention to those small but consistent actions. They're the ones that reveal a deeper level of commitment.
Exactly. True connection is built on shared experiences, consistent communication, and those small but meaningful actions that show you care.
Okay, before we wrap up this section, I want to touch on one more thing. The article says that women might share their personal spaces with someone they're interested in. What's the significance of that?
It's a subtle but powerful gesture. Our personal spaces, whether it's a coffee shop, a park, or even our homes, are filled with meaning and memories. They reflect who we are and what we love.
It's like sharing a little piece of your inner world.
Exactly. Inviting someone into these spaces is like inviting them into a part of yourself. It's like saying, this place is special to me and I want to share it with you.
It's about making new memories together, adding them to the old ones, and deepening the connection through those shared experiences.
Right. And those shared experiences become even more meaningful when they're in a place that's special to you. It's a tangible way of weaving someone into your life.
It's like saying, I trust you enough to let you see this side of me, this part of my world.
Exactly. And that trust shows how deep and meaningful the connection could be.
We've talked about so much in this deep dive. From those initial signs of proximity and touch, to the more subtle expressions of shared rituals, social integration, and those little everyday actions. It's been a fascinating look into the world of nonverbal communication.
It really shows how much we communicate without saying a word. Understanding these subtle cues can be so helpful not just in romantic relationships, but in all kinds of relationships.
Before we move on to our final thoughts, is there anything that really stuck with you from this conversation? Especially about shared rituals, social integration, and those everyday acts of communication and action?
I think what stands out to me is how important consistency and intentionality are. It's not about the big moments, it's about those small but consistent actions that show you really care and want to nurture the connection. It's about showing up day after day and making the effort to include someone in your life.
That's a powerful message. We'll be back in a moment to wrap up our deep dive with some final thoughts, so stick with us. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into the subtle ways women signal their interest. We've learned so much about body language, social media, and those shared rituals.
Yeah, we've really uncovered how women walk that line between showing their interest while also setting boundaries.
Exactly. And before we wrap up, I wanted to go back to something you said earlier about these insights being helpful beyond just romantic relationships. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. We're always communicating, even when we don't realize it. Our body language, our tone of voice, even our words all send messages to the people around us.
So these ideas about nonverbal communication apply to all parts of our lives.
Absolutely. Whether it's friendships, work relationships, or even just talking to strangers, being aware of these cues can make a big difference.
Like having a cheat sheet for understanding people.
Haha, I like that. And the more we understand these little things, the better we can connect with others.
So how can we use this information in our own lives? Where do we start?
Pay attention. Notice how people stand in a room. Look at their facial expressions and body language. Listen to their tone of voice and how they say things.
So become more aware of those nonverbal things we often miss.
Right, and as you do that, you'll start to see patterns. You'll notice how some behaviors go together, and you'll get better at figuring out what they mean.
It's like learning a new language, the language of human behavior.
Exactly. And the better we speak that language, the better we can connect with people.
That's a really interesting thought. It's not just about figuring out if someone's attracted to you. It's about understanding human connection on a deeper level.
Exactly. And don't forget, everyone communicates differently. There's no magic formula for understanding these cues.
Right. We all have our own ways of expressing ourselves.
Exactly. So these general principles can be helpful, but it's also important to trust your gut and think about the specific situation.
That's a good point. It's about finding that balance between understanding the general ideas and recognizing that every situation is unique.
Exactly. Stay curious, stay observant, and remember that human connection is a complex and ever-changing dance.
I love that. That's a great way to wrap things up. We've explored this fascinating world of subtle signs, learned about the psychology behind them, and how to use this knowledge in our own lives.
It's been a great conversation. Thanks for having me.
It was my pleasure. And to our listeners, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the subtle ways women signal their interest. Remember, the world is full of amazing things to discover. Keep being curious, stay open to new ideas, and keep exploring the incredible world of human connection. See you next time.